It's Nancy Juetten, your fearless leader of the Raise Your Voice, Make Your Impact Facebook group. And I am super, super excited to welcome you today to the Learn More, Earn More broadcast live, where I have an extremely wonderful guest that I can't wait to introduce you to. Her name is Meredith Liepelt. How are you, Meredith?
I'm great, Nancy. How are you?
I am great. I have just been counting the minutes for this conversation because this whole idea about visibility, strategy, and the courage to ask for what you want, it seems so timely and so important now more than ever. Don't you think?
I do. I mean, it's a very important conversation right now today. And it feels like everyone's having it out there because it's so top of mind to people. How do you get out there? And how do I do this now? And all that. So yes, thank you for having me here to have this great conversation with you.
Well, it's my pleasure. And so for those of you who are meeting Meredith for the first time, let me share a little bit about Meredith. Since 2007, Meredith, who is the CEO of Rising Star Publicity, has guided hundreds of experts to become recognized authorities in the media that matter most to their message. When clients master the strategies she teaches, they earn their own publicity on TV, podcasts, print, and online outlets, thereby advancing their thought leadership and attracting new clients without paying an expensive agency. Clients have landed recurring spots on television, regular columns, high-profile article placements, TEDx speaking opportunities, MC roles on international stages, and other game-changing opportunities to showcase their expertise in front of potential clients and influencers. And we are lucky to have her with us today. Awesome.
Well, thank you for that introduction. That's amazing.
You're welcome. Well, I think that it's so empowering this last year in particular with the pandemic giving us all a run for the money. It's so empowering that there are experts such as yourself that can actually teach rising stars to accomplish their own publicity without hiring an expensive agency. Right?
Right. Exactly. I mean, we all need this help right now. We all have to be visible and all of that, but maybe hiring an expensive agency is not in the cards for some people right now. And they're more of like a done with you kind of, person. And they want to learn these skills because these are skills that are really life skills, Nancy, right? It's promoting yourself and getting yourself out there and being visible. And you really have to own that. You have to own a lot of that for yourself. And the more you learn about that, the more you can just take that power and do it at really any time you need.
And I think I love that. So before we get into the nitty gritty of our conversation, I thought it would be good to at least help people get to know you a little bit better. Is what drew you to publicity in the first place as your best way to make your impact? And why do you love it so much?
Okay. This is an interesting story because back in 2007, I actually started out helping people with their marketing. And I was working with coaches, consultants, business owners, helping them to market their businesses. And as I was coaching with them, I often would find myself saying, why don't we get you some publicity on the side while we're doing this? And wouldn't that be fun? And so we would pitch and we would get them on TV, or they would get, print media spots, or all kinds of different things. And I did it on the side instead of having it be the focus. And when I saw what it did for my clients in their confidence, in how they even thought about their websites, they started to say, well, I could have a media page. I could put these logos on my website. And it really did a lot to inform their marketing and how they really moved about the world. And again, like their confidence, it was amazing to watch that. So more and more people started to come to me for publicity and, PR and media mentions and all that. So I really stepped into that several years ago. And now I just really focus on that visibility, media, publicity piece of things.
And, I know for myself, there's something very intoxicating and thrilling seeing your name, your likeness somewhere in a much bigger context. It's almost like if we have ever struggled from imposter disease, when we see ourselves on a major network television station or national public radio or on the cover of a magazine that all of our neighbors are reading, there's something that happens in your body. Like, don't you think?
For sure. And I see this with clients who run the gamut of people who are just starting out, people who are already making multiple millions of dollars, people who maybe even have New York Times best-selling books. Everyone, like when they have that one, there's usually one moment or like one media outlet. And when they are mentioned there, or they are quoted, or there's an article, or they go on that station or that podcast, there is a turning point for them. And it is like something clicks and they're just like, they're on fire, they're just on fire and so excited about their business. It really re-energizes them in a very powerful and impactful way.
Well, and so we know that they can escape imposter disease and their confidence can grow in leaps and bounds. But there are other big results that can happen, opportunities and doors that can open for people when they're visible in this way. What are some examples of just a couple of the clients that you've worked with? I know you work with people on a short hop basis, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, but whether you're just getting started, you're going great guns, or you're all the way to the success finish line, like what big outcomes do people love the most about being seen in this way?
Well, it's different for everyone, right? So people come to me, and one of the things that I first talk to them about are like, what is your goal? Like, what's the big goal, right? And so one of my clients, I started working with her probably back in like 2008 or 9, and we're still working together today. And her name is Jacqueline, and she owns a spa. And I called her my esthetician with a dream, because she started out she was a one-person, operation in a salon loft. If you're familiar with what that is, it's just like one room that she rented out. And she had this dream of having multiple spas and creating her own product line and perhaps public speaking and like all these different things. Well, fast forward to today, she has multiple spas in multiple states. She's got a cosmetics line. She's got a skincare line. She is on TV at least once a month and has been for over a decade. She now has regular columns in industry publications. She sells her product line across the world. She is now an MC on international stages and speaker. Like, all these great things have happened for her. She wrote a book. Like, she's been able to, step into this because she's been playing the long game, right? She's been playing. Visibility is a long game, and this stuff doesn't happen overnight. So, she had a dream, and she just kept taking the steps, because that's what we have to do, is just keep taking the steps. So
for those who are watching live, how many of you want what this esthetician is having, to be seen, heard, and celebrated in these ways, and to have that dream of being the go-to thought leader in your space? If you want that, go ahead and post a comment in the chat. Are you intoxicated at the prospect of being seen in this way? Now, one of the things that sets you apart from big agencies is that, unlike many agencies that require and demand that clients sign a 1-year agreement to do business, you actually have short hop ways to engage. What are these short hop ways, and why have you elected to create your business in that manner?
Yeah, I really am different than the traditional PR agency in several different ways. And you're right. One of the ways that I'm different is how I work with people. So I have a couple different ways that I like to work with people. One is in a VIP day. And that is good for people who know they just need like a dose of something. Like, I just need someone to talk this over with. I want a strategy to reach out to my local media. I need to figure out, how can I pitch myself? I need to figure out, maybe you're an author and you want to go on television in several different markets. How do you put together pitches that are relevant for TV? So like, there's usually like one, maybe two things that we work on in a VIP day. And the VIP day is a little bit of a misnomer, because we do talk before to set the agenda. Then we have our day together, and then there's a follow-up day, time afterwards. So a VIP day really helps when you've got like one thing. I just need help on this one thing. Now, the other way I work is also fairly short. I work in 90-day increments with people, because I like to help people create these publicity and visibility habits, and that happens over time. So we work through like, what's the strategy? What's the goal? What's the strategy? What are the tactics? And then I help you as you implement, and we do things together. It's really a done with you kind of situation. And then at the end of the 90 days, many of my clients just roll over and we continue another 90-day piece. Sometimes that's enough. Some clients I just work with constantly. So it really gives people options to for how they want to work. So because, I mean, Nancy, you're in this area, in this industry. It can be a lot of money on a retainer. It can be like, easily $2,000 to $5,000 a month on a 6-month retainer to work with a PR agency. And I've had people come to me after they have had that experience and said that they got far more out of working with me because I don't hold things back. I give contact information of all the journalists that I find. I give you the pitches that we write together, like all these different things, because again, I just feel like it doesn't mean anything if I build the relationship with a reporter and journalist. I want you to build that relationship. So that's what I'm interested in.
I love that. And, the other thing that I think is important about that is the name of your company is Rising Star Publicity. And that would suggest that not everybody's already achieved that 6, 7, or 8-figure revenue stream where it's easy peasy to invest $15,000, $20,000 in an agency. For some, several $1,000s to work alongside of a professional like you, maybe as much as they can do at this particular juncture. But if you teach them to fish, they'll never be hungry for a day in their life. And you are that conduit to allow them to have that reality, which is different and very attractive, I think, to the rising stars that you most want to work with. So awesome.
Yes.
So let's shift gears a little bit. There are so many ways to get visible today. There's television, there's radio, now there's Clubhouse, there's podcasts, there's Facebook Live, there's ways to stream live all at the same time all over the place. There's print. Not all kinds of visibility are right for everybody. I remember years ago working at a radio station and someone says, well, that gal's got a face for radio.
Yeah.
And then there's that really beautiful person that's so mediagenic that everything she touches turns to gold just because people can't stop looking at her. How do we decide how to prioritize what kind of visibility is going to be our best event so that we can make our best impact by being who we really are? I really want to know.
Yeah, I mean, this is really key. And you said a really key word in there, Nancy, which is prioritize. And that is the name of the game because some people think like being visible means that you're everywhere. And I think that is a myth. Absolutely. Because I think visibility doesn't mean we're showing up everywhere. It means that we've picked a few platforms that work for us, that where our clients are, and we've got the right message going out. That's really where you can make headway and visibility. And that's when people will start to say, wow, you're everywhere, because you're everywhere that they are, right? So just because something works for somebody and they might, with all of the best intentions, they might say, oh, I've gotten really great, results by doing X, Y, and Z. That doesn't mean that would necessarily work for you. So I'm all about customizing your visibility plan so that it actually works to your strengths, and you get to perform these things in a way that actually like feel good to you and you get excited about, so that it's not something that you feel like you have to do. It's something that you get to do.
Oh, I like that. I know for myself, I discovered that I like podcast guesting and I like speaking because it just feels very natural and aligned for me. And so when I'm invited to do those kinds of things, I jump all over it and I can't wait to jump out of bed and get started. Whereas there's some kinds of things that I'm, the constant emailing of people, like that's not my favorite thing. And so I think energetically, sometimes people might be able to feel that and have a reaction to it. So how do you have any tips or tools about or suggestions? But do we all have a natural inclination in this way that's already obvious to us, or is this quiz that you have something that can help us with that?
Well, the quiz can definitely start you down that path. And then it's just, it's really, the answer is really not all that far. It's really taking a look at, if you know for sure that you just like, you have never done public speaking and that really scares you, and you would just clam up on stage and you're not ready for that, then that is not your first place to go, obviously. Now, with visibility, it is important to do those things that are like your low hanging fruit. Like for you, Nancy, you love podcast guesting. So doing that is great. Also with visibility, it's good to have a few things that work really well for you, get systems around those so that they're churning and they're working. And then you can start to look at what's next. Then you might, if you're the person who didn't want to go out on stage, maybe at a certain point you're ready to, and you're ready to like go out of your comfort zone and move into your courage zone and start to express your visibility in those ways, right? Because that's when you're playing bigger. You're ready for a bigger stage, literally, maybe a bigger stage or a bigger page, whether it's a magazine or a
bigger stage and a bigger page. Now, there's a sassy soundbite.
That's a sassy soundbite for you right there, right? So it's good to push yourself, but to know where do you start? So if you know that you're a writer and you would love to write, let's start by looking at those options. You're like, do you want to have a column? Do you want to start your own blog? Are there places like Thrive Global that you can go and publish your own work and get that, media credit going on your page? Like, where is the lowest hanging fruit for you? And then get some systems down about those things, start that going, and then you can start looking at some of these other pieces to grow yourself personally and grow your audience.
Very good. Now, regardless of what we choose, whether we're going to be on television or on a podcast or be a great expert resource to a reporter or whatnot, what do you say to your clients about getting media ready? What does that mean?
Okay, well, let me tell you, can I just share a story?
Yes, love
All right.
stories.
Okay, so several years ago, I was starting to work with a new client, and she texted me on a Tuesday, and she says, "Hey, Meredith, I'm going to be in this particular city. Can you get me on this, big TV station?"
Thanks for the notice.
Right, exactly, right, like 4 days. And we're talking about, like, her request was CNBC, so it's not like just like a small thing. So now she had the credibility to back it up. She was a 5-time New York Times bestselling author, all that kind of stuff. And I knew she was ready. So she had a website that looked really good. She had all of her social media was branded exactly like her website. So she looked the part. She had her headshot. She had her logo. She had her bio. She had her talking points, all in one location that made it very easy for me to approach CNBC and say, here's this expert, here's all the assets you would need. She was ready. She also had a free offer that she could talk about when she was on TV, so that she didn't have to like hustle and get ready and get the website up and things like that. So she had the experience. She's been on TV many times before. She had the experience. She was ready for that. So the question is, like, most of us aren't, going to be like going on CNBC, next week or in 4 days or whatever. But the question is, if you wanted to go on TV or you wanted to get some sort of media coverage next week, would you be ready? Like, is your website ready? Do you know what you would talk about? Do you have questions, written that you could offer as suggestions? Like, you can't dictate the questions, but do you have some of those questions ready? Do you have is your headshot current? Is it easily found online? Your logo, is it ready to go? Because the last thing you want is to get in conversation with someone in the media and they say, "Great, can you send me all this stuff?" And you say, "Yeah, I'll send it to you tomorrow because you've got to get it together." And the media's like, "I need it in an hour." Right? So being ready for media is really, really important.
I could not agree more. And I will say that I've considered myself a rising star in publicity for most of my life. And that being ready piece has been the leapfrog for me to jump over other experts far more famous, simply because I was such a joy to work with, and producers enjoyed working with me, knowing that by the time the phone hit the cradle, they had everything they needed to produce a really great show. I think sometimes we think it's all about us. And I've learned in my experience that it's all about how we can make it easy for them to book us.
That's our job. I mean, that's our job. If we want publicity, we want to be in the media, we have to make it easy for them to say yes to us and book us. And frankly, that's the biggest tip I would have on how to get rebooked is be ready, because when they know you've got the goods and you will deliver, you are going to be top of mind for them, because most people are not ready.
And that's part of what you and I help people do. So,
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
so, when we're first getting started, I remember when I was first getting started, I mean, honestly, when I did a Google search for myself, it said I ran 10K races really slowly, and I had no online reputation with regard to my publicity skills, because I was a publicist for other people and didn't have much of a name for myself at all, right?
Yeah.
That was really tough. So when I was first starting out, I thought, well, I'll get on Mom Talk Radio, and I'll get on Blog Talk Radio, and I'll get on some obscure station that nobody ever listens to, and I'll start to gain my confidence and my sound bites. But after doing a lot of these little shows where nobody was paying attention, I started to think to myself, it's time for me to go to a bigger stage. And we all come to that place at one point or another. So my question to you is, when we're feeling ready to break out of that low-hanging fruit category and go to those big shows, like, what do we need to do to source the courage to actually ask for and get those placements?
That is a really good question. And I love talking about, taking it beyond like just the low hanging fruit, because it really does require courage, and it requires you to kind of like build your asking muscle. Like, you've got to learn to ask if you want opportunities just in this world in general, right? So courage is really a big component of this, because if you find that when you think of like what's my goal, and it makes you kind of like a little bit like, right, like, oh my gosh, like, could I possibly be on the Today Show, or could I possibly be quoted in this in Forbes or all this kind of stuff? That's when like you're actually ready. It's just you know what it's taken to get to this point, right? And so that is very exciting. And you can also have some fear that comes with that, because the more you put yourself out there in the spotlight, the more you're going to attract the right people, but you're also going to potentially, have some criticism that goes along with that. So that's a whole big conversation to have around visibility is, what are you going to do with criticism? What are you going to do when your own inner critic, comes in and all that kind of stuff? And it's just good to start to think about how are you going to handle that, and what are your systems around that going to be? But yes,
what I've noticed is that I'm sorry to interrupt, but when you're doing the low hanging fruit and you're being interviewed by your buddy who has a podcast that she started last week, and you're getting it showcased in somebody's Facebook group that has 3 members, it's like friends helping friends, and you're getting your training wheels on, and it feels really good, and you're supporting each other. But then you start to allow yourself to imagine, what if I was on the morning news? What if I was on the cover of that magazine? What would happen in my business? How many more lives could I touch and transform if I had that platform to stand on? And what I have discovered with observing clients of mine who have taken this path, and my own path personally, is that your own game has to get better. You get better audio quality. You get a better background for your video calls. You work on your hair. You get something better to wear. I mean, you start playing a bigger game because you are a bigger player, and all of a sudden you step into a whole new dress. And
without a doubt, I mean, you level up, you start leveling up. And when you start leveling up in one area, you just naturally start leveling up in another area. And then it's just this ripple effect that starts to happen, because then in your mind, it's like this mind game, right? Like you're playing a bigger game. You're ready to raise your prices. You're ready to take a better, a more critical look at at your website or your whole business model. Like there's this huge ripple effect that can happen just by knowing, I'm going to step out there, I'm going to stick my neck out there, and I'm going to say what I have to say, because I can help people. And you just know that you have to level up in all these different areas. And it's actually really exciting to watch people go through this process, because, everyone gets better looking, because we start we start paying attention to these things. There's even just I mean, everything from like voice quality to energy to the things that we tolerate and don't tolerate anymore, the people that we hang around with, like all this stuff starts to up level. And then again, it's just this ripple effect, because then you meet people who are also out there doing this and they're like, hey, now let's hang out. And then you're just hanging out with a different level of person. And it just keeps going and going and going. Like my clients who are now doing, TEDx, who done TEDx talks. I mean, they're hanging out with all kinds of different people now. It's just this constant moving forward of who you are personally as well as your business.
And that's the part I think that's the least talked about of all the things there are to, yes, we're going to be 100% in to get most visible, but what happens in your own inner game and how it expresses in your outer game and how you get to play with cooler players and how your own cool quotient goes way up high. These are the kinds of things that are really hard to measure, but they have value because there's something that's going on in the blood in your veins, letting you know that your time is now and you're stepping into it like a rose that's been blooming to be ready for this all this time. So I just love, I get all excited about it.
I do too. I'm with you. I'm right there with you. And it's so fun to witness this in other people.
So I'm seeing a couple of comments here. Someone says, yes, hooray to playing a bigger game. And this is so important. And someone says, with Nancy's help, I got my media kit ready. Building relationships with reporters is so powerful. So these are some of the comments. If you've got other comments, if you're intoxicated about the idea of up-leveling to do better in everything in your life, not just your business, because you're more visible, go ahead and give us an amen or a heck yeah in the comments. We'd love to hear from you on that. So we know we need to have courage to ask for the bigger gigs and to pitch the bigger shows. And we've all been sheltering in place for the last year or so. And so if there was one silver lining about this pandemic that makes getting visible more doable than ever before, what would that be?
I mean, there have been some things that have changed. For example, like one of my specialties is helping people get on local lifestyle TV. And one of the things that has changed is you can still do that. You just get to do it from the comfort of your home or your office because you're not going into the studio. So you can, create your space. You can have your own branding. If you have like a drop or something like that behind you, or if you've got an office, you can, be in different areas of your office and show all of that. So you can be on television in your local market from the comfort of your home. And you can also be in other local markets pretty easily because you're just zooming in. I mean, that's all you're doing is you're just zooming in. So it really opens up the doors for television opportunities for it's a whole new world out there. I mean, even these huge, like CNN, MSNBC, they have people zooming in on those stations. Same with all the local stations across the country.
I think that this year in particular, we've all learned by default, we've had to learn how to zoom in. Many of us have had to learn to stream live. Many of us have had learned all kinds of different platforms. And even when vaccinations are in willing arms and the world goes back to what might be some would call a new normal, I have a feeling that video interviews are still going to be very much a thing. Do you agree?
Oh, I think so. When I talk to my PR colleagues across the country, everyone's saying the same thing. Like, these are not going away. They might change a little bit, that you might have other opportunities to go into the studio as well. But this is going to be part of what we do now, is just zoom in from anywhere.
Right. Now, before we came live today, we both polled our Facebook group audiences to find out what burning questions they had about visibility, strategy, and courage. And we got some really good questions. And so I would like to ask some of those questions. And for those of you who are live now, if you have a burning question about visibility, strategy, and courage, or anything how-to related or mindset related with regard to up-leveling, go ahead and post it in the chat, and we'll try to answer as many of these questions as we can in the time that we have. So let's start with the first one. The first one is, how do we break the ice and get those first few opportunities to be visible, especially when we're just starting out?
Okay, great question. So this is where you do start looking at your low-hanging fruit, right? So who do you know that has a podcast? Who do you know that has maybe a newsletter where they can promote you and what you're doing? Who do you know that maybe writes for a local magazine or something like that? So you can start with some of this low-hanging fruit, but also I want you to understand that there are places, I mentioned this before, Thrive Global, which is Ariana Huffington's website, accepts articles. So, I mean, that's a big deal. Like, you just have to go through their process and send it in and then see if it's approved. And then you could have that credit, sometimes, I mean, I'll be honest with you, sometimes this happens within a week. So look for opportunities like that. Also, I would say to go to a website called helpareporterout.com and sign up for those free emails. And what happens there is journalists and producers, editors, writers go to this resource. It's a free resource that they go to and they say, hey, I need somebody who can tell me about this, that, or the other thing, right? And so then we end up receiving emails 3 times a day. I think it's 5:30 in the morning Eastern, noon Eastern, and 5:30, something like that. But 3 times a day. And it can be a lot. There's a lot on these emails, but if you sift through, and I teach people how to pitch to these queries so that they can increase their odds of being chosen. You can get amazing coverage through Help a Reporter Out.
Can I share a little story about that?
Yeah.
A number of years ago, I was doing the public relations and publicity for Seattle Chocolate Company.
Mm-hmm.
I remember meeting with the CEO, who's a lovely woman, Jean Thompson. And I said, what do you want, Jean? If wishes were horses and you could have any publicity, she says, I want the Wall Street Journal and I want Oprah magazine. And I said, I love a client that aims high. I said, what else do you want? Because sometimes these big hits can take a little while. And she told me some other things that she wanted. This is no joke. The very next week on helpareporter.com, I saw something from the Wall Street Journal. A reporter from the Wall Street Journal was looking for an example of a company that had founded ways to, a company in a seasonal business that had founded a way to round out their revenue streams year round. And what was their story? And so I pitched Seattle Chocolate Company as having these seasonal, I pitched them. And they were in the Wall Street Journal the next week. And that same week, there was someone, a producer from Oprah magazine, saying they were doing their breast cancer awareness, whatever it is. And did they have any examples of companies that had created products that were giving something back to the cause? And also, I can't remember, something to do with breast cancer. One Harrow day, it was almost like the law of attraction. She said she wanted the Wall Street Journal and Oprah magazine. And I thought, okay, challenge on. I go to Harrow. Both of those things happened like within the first month of the engagement. And oh my God, I thought, I felt like I was up leveling in a really big way because I'd never pulled off either of those up until that point, until she said that's what she wanted. And then it was like the reticular activating system at work. Like, I better go find that.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And what a great story. Because that's the reality of what can happen when you know how to pitch and you're looking for these things. This stuff can I've had stories like that too. One of my clients, her dream was Harvard Business Review. And so I was like, okay. Well, through Help a Reporter Out, it happened. So again,
when it comes to getting media ready, I remember this, and just imagine what you would do if this happened to you. Hi, I'm the editor for Oprah's Favorite Things, and we're putting together the best chocolates to buy for Breast Cancer Awareness Day. We're doing a tasting. Can you get chocolates to us tomorrow? There was a 3-hour time difference. I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, how am I going to pull this off? So I end up calling someone in New York who was the supplier who carried the product. And I hired a messenger to go to this liquor store to pick up this chocolate, to ship it over to the business. You do whatever it takes when Oprah's calling. You do whatever it takes when the Harvard Business Review is calling. You do whatever it takes. And that's why it's important to be media ready, but it's also important to have an eye of what you want and have the courage to go for it. Right?
Well, exactly. And this is the whole point about asking, is like, you have to, and one of my favorite phrases is make it happen. Like, what do you have to do to make it happen? And you just have to keep following those next steps. And maybe it happens like next week, what a miracle. Or maybe it happens in a couple years, like, I don't know, but you have to put stuff, you have to have a goal and put things out there and just be aware of where you're going, so that then when opportunities can come, you're open and ready for them, and you're ready.
Yeah. And how cool is it to be able to say that you were in the Harvard Business Review, or you were on ABC, or you were on whatever. So that's the ways to leverage. That's the way to break the ice. The next question is, how can we best leverage a single visibility opportunity so it leads to more?
Yes. Okay. So here's the thing. Getting the publicity is almost like your first step, because what you do with it is really what counts, because you can leverage your one media credit, you can leverage forever. All right. So let me just give a quick example. There's somebody that I had on TV out in San Francisco, and she was on TV 3 years ago. And so she posted about it on Facebook. So every year when she gets this memory, she, it says, do you want to repost this? She reposts it. And she's like, oh, I remember when I did this and talked about this and that. And she, has something interesting to say. And every year she gets new comments. She gets new likes. She gets people in conversation. Right. And so that was publicity that she got 3 years ago now at this point, and she's still leveraging it. So there's all kinds of different ways to leverage it. So I want you to think of it sort of depends on what kind of media coverage you're talking about. But if you're doing like an interview with a journalist who's writing a written piece, like maybe you could, just let your, like out on social media, just say, hey, I'm being interviewed today by X, Y, and Z, wish me luck. Or, it's just like bringing people in behind the scenes. They love that. If you're going on TV, what color should I wear? I've got a red dress and a yellow dress. Like, what do you think? Just getting people and bring them along with you. Like, we all want to come along on this ride with you. So let's go. Let's do this together. So there's things that you can do before like that. And then afterwards, definitely, obviously post it on social media. But you can also create like something on your website that says as seen in. Don't you want like an as seen in piece on your homepage? Because then that's immediate credibility. It starts to stop that harsh scrutiny when people come there. They say, oh, well, it could, because who's quoted in the media? Experts, and that's you. So make sure that even with, like, you start with one, then you have two, then you'll have three. Have an as seen in piece on your website. Then you can also have a media page, and keep that media page current with all your media credits. Have links. If you have PDFs, like, keep those things current. That's something that I learned the hard way. I have tons of things that I just never took screenshots of. I still have that media credit and I, and all that, but take screenshots of stuff that is online. Use a clipping service to purchase your TV spot or your written piece, if there's something in a magazine or a newspaper. Sometimes companies will contact you, like they're called, like, I'm in the media or something like that. And they'll say, do you want the plaque? With your magazine article on it. And if you have a place where people come in to you, get the plaque, put it on your wall, like those kinds of things. If you don't,
one of my clients was France Chocolates of France Chocolates, and she'd been in Gourmet magazine and Chocolatier magazine, and all of this beautiful media coverage was mounted on these wooden plaques. And when you go into any of her beautiful chocolate boutiques, you walk in and you go, this isn't just your standard fare chocolate shop. This is America's finest chocolatier, and she's got the press to show for it. It just it helps justify the high prices you pay when you go there.
Well, it does. And same with proposals. Like, say you're a consultant and you don't have like the office that people come into. You can put that somewhere in proposals that you create, or maybe slideshows that you share with people, and, and maybe update your bio. Like there's just all these different ways to leverage your media. You can, at some point you can create a nice sizzle reel, maybe a couple pictures of your media you have your media coverage, maybe a photo or a video of you on stage, and you can use this in your social media. You can have this on your homepage to build this excitement about you, because when people come there, you can say, wow, this is a mover and shaker. Like, they really know what they're doing. They're making things happen. I want to know more about what they're doing.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And, I remember when I was first starting out, it was Mom Talk Radio and Blog Talk Radio and the radio show that nobody knows the name of, and some obscure television show that nobody even watches, even at 4:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
And then somewhere down the line, you start getting on the real shows, NPR, Forbes.com, CNN. Just visually, those kinds of icons put a halo of credibility around your expertise that visually communicates in a way that you have no idea how great it is.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. It makes a big difference if somebody is vetting you against somebody who doesn't have any media coverage. That could be the thing that tips them right over the edge, is because they know that you're committed to
that leads me to a follow-up question, which is, there are people that have the media and there's the people that don't. If you are the producer of a show and you are sitting on an edge of the pin and you have to decide, do I go with this one or do I go with that one? What does it say to the producer about the one who has the logos versus the one that doesn't?
Right. Well, that they're experienced and that they're going to show up and they're going to deliver. They can deliver a great segment. They can deliver a great interview. They're going to deliver the goods. They've got their, probably a media page together, that they understand what it takes to be in the media. So you're a more obvious yes.
Yeah, I love that. So what's the number one thing not to do
in terms of visibility?
Mm-hmm.
I would say the number one thing not to do is to really not focus on it, or to wait until you need visibility to focus on it, because again, this is a long game, right? So you're in this for a long time. So constantly focusing on your visibility is an important thing, because when you're at the point in your business where you're like, oh boy, I'm hit a dry spell and I don't have any clients or something like that, like, it's going to take you a while to ramp that up. And, I've gone through this myself, where I've just been like, just been a little bit burned out and tired of it. And it took me a while to get back into it again. So staying consistent with it really is key. It really is important. So I would say, the number one thing would be to stay consistent with your visibility.
And I would add, don't be a dabbler. Go all in and make a commitment to being visible in the ways that are right for you. Because when you don't dabble, you take yourself seriously, and you do. And when you do, great things happen.
Yes.
Right?
Definitely.
Now, sometimes we get all intoxicated with how many Facebook likes we have and how many comments we get on Facebook, or they're vanity metrics. Like, what metrics really matter when it comes to taking stock of whether or not our visibility was paying off?
This is such a big question. And I mean, the short answer is that, like, there's not one measurement that matters. It really is, it goes back to what's your goal. Like, when you set out the goal at the very beginning, like, what did you want to have happen? Did you want to drive people to a landing page and have them download your thing? Like, and then did that happen? Or, what was your goal, and were you able to move the goalpost, so that, you can just see this progress. So yes, you can look at some vanity metrics, and maybe that's something, but really take a look at what were you trying to do, and were you able to accomplish that? Because that's going to start to inform some other things. So a lot of times people, like, if you have like one, you place one article and then you say, well, I didn't get anything from that. Well, maybe not today, but you never know what you might get from that tomorrow. I mean, I had a client once who told me, said that a client was asking her about a pretty expensive product that she had, and said, I'm going to go think about it. Well, she went home and Googled the name of this thing. She found an article that had her, she was just quoted in it. It wasn't even an article about her from years ago. And she said, well, clearly you are the expert. And she signed on the dotted line. So, sometimes this is the long game piece. Sometimes those payoffs don't come immediately. So you can find other ways to leverage and things like that. And, media begets media. So the more you're right. So, you're out there and you're doing this and you're doing this. And then maybe they see, oh, well, maybe somebody sees, well, I like what you're saying here. Maybe you could come over here on my show, or maybe I can interview you for Forbes or the local magazine or whatever the case may be.
So that brings me to something that I've been noticing is that if you're a rising star in the beginning, you're pitching and you're initiating posts and you're initiating pitches. And sometimes it can feel like you're Charles Atlas and you're trying to lift up so that you can get noticed. But when you start getting booked or placed or showcased in all of these bigger venues where more eyeballs and ears are listening, what you don't count on, which is probably the most intoxicating thing about it, is just exactly what you said, that one media placement begets another thing. And then instead of you having to pitch, you get to respond and say yes to things that are cooler than you ever thought they could be.
Right. I mean, doors open, opportunities open, joint ventures can open, all kinds of different things can happen when you're out there. So yeah, you just have to keep working it.
Yeah. So one of the things that we talk about often is how important it is when you do a radio interview or a Facebook Live or any kind of interview, you have to have a way to invite people to take that next step in your direction. And it's so nice if you have a way to do that in a way that actually captures a name and an email address so that you can subsequently nurture those new fans and followers to become champions, advocates, and perhaps even clients. We know that's basic internet marketing 101. So I'm curious, Meredith, being media savvy, media ready, and on message, do you have such a gift to share with our audience? And can you tell us what it is and what the wow is waiting for them when they run and not walk to go get it?
Yes. So I love these free gifts that are interactive and give you some sort of perspective, right? It's not just information. You actually get some knowledge about yourself and where you are and what your next steps could be. So to that end, I created an interactive quiz that helps you figure out where you are in your path of being ready for media. And you can get that at, it's a bit.ly. It's bit.ly/media quiz.
And it's scrolling at the bottom of our screen. It's been scrolling the whole way. And so I hope you'll run and not walk. And I want to point out something really cool about this link that's very strategic and smart on Meredith's part. A bit.ly link is trackable and measurable. So she can go to her bit.ly dashboard and see how many people have gone to get this particular quiz at this particular site. So it's a way for you to measure return on your effort. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. So, and this is just a fun, very simple quiz. You can finish it in 2 minutes. And then I'm going to give you, I automatically give you some next steps. So I hope you go check it out because it's really fun and it's very informative.
And it's going to tell us how media ready we are. And isn't it true that when you figure out that you really want to be visible, but you're not media ready, you all of a sudden realize you better get your act together, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. And right. And, we all always have to take that next step. So if you're in that position, great. That means you're pure potential. Like, let's go. Let's get started there.
Yeah.
So yes.
And so there may be people that are watching this and falling in love with you and love that you have these short hop ways to engage so that you can be their communications co-pilot to co-create their visibility strategy so that they can get seen, heard, and celebrated. So if someone's in a hurry and ready to rush and have a chat with you, what is the best way for them to reach out and make that connection?
Well, I'm getting excited just by hearing you say those words because this is exactly what I love to do with people. So the best way to get in touch with me quickly is go to risingstarpublicity.com/strategy. And you can set up a time to talk with me, and I will help you figure out your next 3 best steps in terms of your visibility strategy. And then I'll share with you, just more about these ways that we can work together and see what might work best for you.
I love that. risingstarpublicity.com/strategy. If you are live on this call, I am inviting you to make this a priority at this very moment. Run and do not walk, because when you have the opportunity to glide alongside a veteran publicity expert and welcome the results that we've been talking about here on this program today, why would you wait a moment longer, right? When help is so close at hand. Now, one of the things we talked about also during today's call is having the courage to ask and to dream bigger and believe that your audience, your voice deserves a much bigger audience. And so, Meredith, I believe that your work and your voice deserves a much bigger audience. What ask could you make of those who are watching today in that regard?
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Nancy. I hope that people who are watching this can tell how passionate I am about this topic and how much I love to talk about this topic. So if you're watching this and you have a Facebook group or you have some sort of group who would love to hear this message and have me share some tips or something like that, I would love to talk with you about how I could come and serve your audience in a speaking way, or maybe through some articles, or
maybe a podcast guesting opportunity.
Podcast guesting, everything's on the table, right? So how is there a way that I can serve your audience? If there's a way that I can serve your audience, I would also love to talk with you so I can continue this conversation and, help you help your people. So I would love that.
Yes. And I just love what we just did there, because when you have the opportunity to have your message heard by hundreds of people or thousands of people, you give as much content as you can. You show up the brilliant expert that you are. You give value in the form of a free gift. You give people access to a way to have a chat about how you can engage more fully. But don't forget to consider how many more audiences you could potentially serve if you simply source the courage to ask, I'm available to take your stage, to speak on your podcast, to lead a training for your mastermind. I'm available to potentially create a joint venture or strategic alliance. If you love me, let's have a chat and let's see what we can co-create together, because that's how it's done in 2021. People are reaching across the miles and finding clever, compelling ways to collaborate in relationship so that people's bars can be raised.
Absolutely. It all happens within a conversation. So it's all about, let's get into a conversation and see how we can best serve your people.
So Meredith, it has been such a pleasure to have you as my guest on the Learn More to Earn More show. If you are new to the Raise Your Voice, Make Your Impact Facebook community, I'm so glad that you are here. If you are new to my YouTube channel, go ahead and hit that red subscribe button and you'll be alerted every time I come on with a new guest who has something to share to advance the Learn More, Earn More conversation. And if you loved this video and have people that you want to share it with, please be generous and forward it to those who can benefit most, because when you do that, the rising tide will lift all the boats. So with that, I say thank you all for being here. Thank you, Meredith, for being such a gracious guest. And I look forward to being with you live next week when we have another fabulous topic to discuss that will help you learn more and earn more as you raise your voice and make your impact. So with that, thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.